Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome here. I guess I should say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Although I see the vast majority of us this morning, I think, are in the same time zone. So my name is Lowell Ann, and I host this Success Circle called Being Your Own CEO every Tuesday morning. And we get together because we really enjoy each other's company. We enjoy experimenting and trying new things and sharing information. And we do a little business together now and again as well. So it's nice to have everyone in the film strap here this morning. And so the very first thing that needs to happen is that they have the opportunity to share their who they are and where they are and what they do. So this morning, I think probably just work from my left, your right, I think, if the viewer's right. So Alana, how would you like to begin this morning?
Wow, number one today. Hi, everyone. My name is Alana, and I live in Ireland, and I run a blog, nestorblog.com, where I help empty nesters create their own online income. And so it's about dinner time here, so I'm probably one of only two here that is from a different time zone. So happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. Welcome. And Fred, what about you?
Oh, I'm number two. Didn't expect that. I'm located in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, which a few of us are. And I'm the sort of creator of ourfutureleaders.ca, where I'm encouraging young people to communicate either over the internet or I do run face-to-face groups. And one of the exciting things that happened last week after summer break, and I said, why did you come back? And it was very interesting to hear, because they said how much it was helping them. And it was fascinating, because I thought, well, after summer, they might not want to come back. But it was a very interesting conversation.
Success. Mm-hmm. Indicators of success. Congratulations, Fred. That's cool. Welcome here. So now we have also Gina, who is returning. She was here some time ago, and she's back.
That's because I no longer have a commitment at this time. I've canceled that out. So my name is Gina Donaldson. I'm here in beautiful Victoria, overlooking Harrow Strait. My business is personal passage planning, and I help people prepare for life events, so that if anything happens, a change in their life, retirement, moving, sickness, death, that either they can help themselves more easily or somebody else can help them.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I had the opportunity to actually see one of the packages that Gina put together while working with one of her clients. And I'm still, it's still on my my to-do list, Gina. But boy, it sure is. It sure does make sense to put all your important information, collect it all, and put it together in a coherent way. So, I think it's an awesome idea, especially, but not only for those that are of an age, shall we say.
Basically, if you're over 19, you should do this.
Yeah, right. It's so nice to have you here, Gina. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So good morning, Jay. What's new with you?
Oh, hi. My name is Jay. My company is Magi Studios, and we help people get started in the world of online marketing through coach consulting and training, hailing from Victoria, British Columbia. And yeah, things are good. Clients are paying me money, and they're very busy, and so things are grand. Loving life and loving business.
Right on.
The curse of being busy.
Yes, I always say busy is good.
Yeah, and I've got hot seats this week. So this Friday I'm going to be doing my seasonal hot seat that we do every season. And
all right.
Already the requests to be in the hot seat are flooding in. I had a message, someone asking me, is it like the hot seats on TV where you roast these people, or so as someone who's never seen the hot seat before, right? So I thought that was pretty cute.
So this is all within Wealthy Affiliate. For those who are unaware, and Jay is their master trainer, and he does something of absolute and extreme value every Friday night. And then this hot seat is to for members of new members, especially, I would say, who are busily learning how to create their own website, and they would like to have some objective feedback. So yeah, and those are for someone that's been around for a long time. I find them very, very useful and very helpful. I always pick up something. So right on. So welcome here, Jay. So and Jay is also in Victoria, by the way. So Paul, what's going on with you these days?
Well, I'm still in, let's try our voice. There we go. I'm still in Victoria, a couple of blocks away from you, Lowland, so nothing's changed there. TTG International Management is still trying to find ideas and turn them into profitable action. And I'm really happy because last week at the BC, what was it called? Let's try it. Okay, BC Innovation Council New Ventures Competition, my chaps from Slick Spaces took third place. So life is good. They got a nice write-up in Business Insider as well. So life is good.
No kidding. Another success. Woohoo! Right on. So welcome here, Paul, as usual. So Roland, you're next in the film strip.
Doesn't look like it to me, but I'll jump in there. Hi, Roland from MinMax Media, endorser of the DIY livestreamingshow.com website and the producer of the show Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. And I'm really having a lot of fun to be here and glad to be invited. Thank you.
No, it's good to have you here, and thank you for your music production. We sort of started doing that quite a while ago now, didn't we? So
months.
Yeah. So it's always nice to set that tone. So thank you.
Well, it's kind of advanced technology here, and so I think I'm glad to handle it for you there.
Yeah, make sure the flux capacitor is running at 1.21 gigawatts.
Oh dear, we have fun. So thanks for joining us, Roland. And so last but not least, Tim, what's going on with you?
Well, definitely not least. a little more last than I would care for. I'm Tim Longwell with Longwell Art, where we help you reignite your creativity for better health and happiness. And we also do fine artwork for you to enjoy and appreciate in your home.
Mm.
We are in southeastern Oklahoma under cloudy, rainy skies with a very high allergy content today.
Uh-huh.
So windows are closed, even though the weather outside is cool and we're having to run the air conditioner.
Oh, right on. So nice to have you here, Tim. And I have to say that I do enjoy your little YouTube videos. Whenever you post something, pops up in the corner of my screen. So I quite often watch it from my smartphone, however.
There is a new one that went up this morning.
I know.
An unexpected one for most people, and I'm already getting real positive feedback that they didn't realize that it could be that simple, because it is apparently something a lot of people struggle with. Next week, I believe starting next Monday, we're going to do a little series on finger painting and some finger painting fun for the fall decorating.
Oh, right on. Cool. Right. So I want to introduce our today's topic. Last week, we spent a bit of time talking about the value of offering freebies. Sorry. And we got into this discussion about, what's the perception of using the terminology free. And I'm saying this because you guys all get to say your successes, and I never do when I'm introducing, but I thought, well, this would be a really good way for us to start this conversation, is for me to sort of say that I did do, I think Jay was the one that challenged me to go and change the wording on my website, which I did do, and immediately 2 new people signed up. I thought, well, I can't believe this. So point taken. Don't label the materials and the things that you are offering to people. Don't label them as free, because the value seems to be diminished when it's called free. So in line with that conversation that we had, we thought we would extend that conversation this morning to an exploration of the 2 concepts of price versus value. And I thought it might be a good way to begin to say, all right, so who determines, well, let's look at maybe value first. So who determines value? I think that sometimes when you look at things that are offered online, that some producers like to determine the value, but who determines value?
I think we can even take it a step further back, and even before determining value, is what makes value. Is it the course, the material, or is it the person or entity behind the course? So I think, when one has more experience and is perhaps recognized as someone who is a leader or an authority within the niche or within the sector or industry, there is creates more value. That in essence is ups the value. So because if 2 people were to publish the same type of material, same course, one had more experience and was more recognized in the industry, and a second person would be just up and coming, obviously the people would be more attracted to the person with more experience, because it's street cred, if you will, right? So, and I think that's an important thing when it comes to having value or creating value or assessing value. So I think once that's determined as to what has value or what creates value, that is when you can start to determine what value is. And I think one of the biggest things is time. So if it is a course or a product that consumes much of the person's who's going to be purchasing it, consumes their time, I think there's a good perception of more value there.
That's an interesting piece that I hadn't thought about it at all, the time piece. So you're suggesting that the value comes from who's doing it. I'm thinking it's also what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, but I think that's relevant to what the niche is. I mean, if it's a, and I think also I mean, there's so many variables, right? Like we could say, like, if it's a starter course, typically people have the perception then the value is going to be lower because it's a starter, get started kind of thing. If we say mastermind or advanced training course or something along that line, then there's, I could be wrong here, but I think there's a perception that it's going to have a higher price point or a higher value, right? Oh, it's more advanced, more elaborate, more time commitment, more investment in your time.
And that, I think that's a really valid point as well. So, Roland, were you signaled that you had a question? Caught him off guard.
If I could even find my mouse. Yes, because we want to take this from the same perspective, and I'm not sure which one we're doing, because there's projected value, or what we would like to make off of our products and services, and then there's perceived value, and that is from those looking from the outside that may or may not be. And then there's the actual value of when people buy it, what they deem is the value once they've actually invested. Did they get their money's worth, or was it a waste of time? Would they return? Would they buy it again? Would they recommend it? This is being evaluated from 2 or 3 different perspectives, and I think that we should break it down to which one we're addressing.
Look, I'm not sure I follow you, Roland. So
okay, let's put it this way. I evaluate my show of one of my classes at $300, but very few people have bought into that. Now, does that mean the value is not worth for $300, or does it simply mean that the market is very niche, proven, and selective? So if I were to compare that against the general masses and say, well, my program's not popular because only 0.5% of the people who've had exposure to it want to buy it. But I think that that's a serious misjudgment of what I'm trying to analyze. So we have to look at it from a perspective. And, Jay was talking about, I think, more from a standpoint of price setting and determining what it's worth to the potential client. And then it's like, but the client determines the value, don't they? If they buy or they don't buy, or they buy and they don't get much value, or they buy and get tremendous value, then the value is addressed, and the value is put, is measured, and it's measurable when you get a reaction to the people who have spent the money.
Okay, so you're what I think I'm hearing is you're asking who sets the value.
Yeah, I mean, to look at the value and say this is how we do it is one thing, but the buying client is the one that determines the result of whatever it is we're figuring.
Okay, so what makes value is determined from what perspective?
And inevitably it has to do with whether or not we are delivering something that is of value to the buyer, because they're the ones that really put the mark of the stamp of approval. So,
but I really appreciate this piece around kind of the difference between, I mean, I think from my perspective as a producer, if I'm probably not putting as detailed and depth into a starter package, for example, as I would into an advanced package. So, I mean, even as the producer, I am sort of determining to some degree what its value will be. I think so anyway.
Well, absolutely. You're assessing it, because what you don't want to do is price the beginning package too high before the people know what the value is. You price the beginning package as a teaser or a loss leader almost, so that people can sample what it is you deliver, so they place a value personally on what the higher package is. And you want them to invest in the bigger one, but they're not going to do that without a taste.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing, like I see price and value as, I mean, I see them as connected, but I also see them very separate. Does anybody else see it that way?
So listen, Lolan, to me, value is always determined by the customer.
Yeah.
Things like price and time are measurements of value.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at them as measurements of what the value is, and a couple of things you said about putting more sort of time and effort into an advanced course than a starter course, as an example. It's interesting in this debate over Twitter, everybody's on about, they've made it longer now and its value. Well, often things that are shorter and more condensed, although they're harder to do, they provide more value. So to me, a starter course should be really you should be putting more effort into it, because that's your onboarding. That's how people get into your system. Once they're in there and you've worked with them, then you can determine the missing pieces that they don't have to build your other courses. But that first course, to get the people to come and play with you, to me, is how you determine whether you're getting value. And the other thing about, sometimes we put out courses, Roland mentioned about a $300 course, and perhaps not getting the response he thought he would get. You'll also have to determine, well, is it because the course doesn't have value, or that I'm not marketing it to the right audience? I haven't found my audience yet. So it's complex, but if you break it down into smaller pieces, I think that's the way. But I always look at value comes from the customer, and the rest of the stuff is just measurements of that value.
So the other question, and I hear you. I see them as connected, definitely. I like your point about the effort that it takes for a starter to make it more concise and maybe more valuable in a sort of a way. Although advanced courses, something advanced and more detailed, etc., may not take as much effort on my part to make it concise and really sharp. But I guess depending on the need of the client, as you say, the something more detailed and more in depth may be needed. The question has always arisen in my coaching work with people is, how the heck do you set your price?
Oh, I'd love to jump in on that one. I think the perception of value and price for a digital or service-based a digital or service-based product it's probably one of the more difficult things about being an entrepreneur is to, how do you value yourself or your time or your products or your service, right? Whereas a physical product, if you're selling a physical product, you have your hard costs. I think someone in the live chat Stroke TV says hard costs, hard operating cost markup. Yeah, so there's your hard costs for a physical product, right? So I mean, if I'm selling this eyeglass case, I'm selling it for $30, and my cost to produce this with my logo on it is say $15. So my markup is 15, and that's what my my gross profit is $15. But then I've got my operating costs and so on and so forth. With a digital product, if it's a digital product where you just have to create it once and then put it out on the internet and then market it, well, there's the profit margin, generally speaking, is a lot larger because you only have to invest that time once to produce the product versus ongoing costs to produce it. Your ongoing costs then shift into the marketing part. So, you can, and also from a customer's perspective, there's more, people have a better perception of value with a physical product than a digital product. A digital product is air, it's zeros and ones, whereas a physical product is, atoms, neutrons, and carbon. I mean, it's something that they can touch, feel, smell, taste, whatever. So that is always a really big challenge. So instead of kind of saying, all right, well, this is my course, it's $100 or something like that, right? You need to convince people the value of that $100 because they don't have the ability to actually put it in their hands and mold it and stuff, right? So, and I think the way you do that is through words and convincing people through testimonials, and also kind of going back to that time investment, right? We know that this is going to take, this is an investment in your time as well. And I really, really think that's a very important thing to say to people when you're selling a digital product, because the most common thing that I see in my experience with the internet marketing world is that people see a product and they'll read the PDF or go through the videos, and they won't really commit to it unless there's some sort of accountability part to the whether it be the sales page or the actual inside of the product itself. But I really stress saying that time is the really big influencer in terms of valuing the price of a product.
Well, I agree with you there, but there's a few more things. I mean, you refer to a digital product as being just so much, like air. I have looked at it from the perspective of providing a service such as coaching. And there's, I mean, you have to look at your business as a whole, all of the business expenses that you have, and to be able to fold that in, and to be able to look at your expected and needed income from providing that service. All of those pieces must be taken into account, as well as the going rate.
Absolutely, yeah. So a service-based product, there is a physical thing, and that's you, right? The person delivering the thing on an ongoing basis. Mm-hmm. So I perhaps I should have clarified saying that I was more referring to a digital-based product, a course, a PDF, videos, or something like that, where you produce it, and then your job is to then market the course or market the digital product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not an easy thing to do, but I certainly agree with you that I mean, in the long run, it's finding the right words to help that consumer or prospective consumer understand what the value is going to be for them. Because sometimes they feel a need and recognize if there's a need, they see a value, but sometimes they don't always fully appreciate the value until they've experienced it. So, Fred, I mean, you this morning you mentioned that the young folks came back to your fall, you know, your new beginning for the fall, and the fact that they came back is an indication of the value that they placed. And
Right.
was there any conversation about that, or how did that play out?
Well, when I asked them why they came back, it was really what it was doing for them. If you sum it up, you know, they were now able to vocalize things. Some of them were shy, and now they're finding their own voice, getting self-confidence, etc. And there was a lot of great examples of that. So I think to use that to this topic, it is they have to see value, your customers. Now, the pricing of that is often a challenge because it's perceived. If you say, oh, I'll give you this course, for example, for $49, mm-hmm. People will think, oh, really? For $49, I'm not going to get much. When you make it $499, it is, wow, I'm getting more. And it could be the same course. We went through this in a company I was working for, and we were the lowest price, and we raised it, and we got more customers at a certain level. We raised it too much, and we got less customers. So it's to find that price point where the perceived value. And you can give away things for free, and people will say, well, it can't be worth anything if it's free.
Yeah. Because
it's free. Yet, you've got to convince them, and I think Jane mentioned this last week, was one thing that drives me crazy often, and I think everyone most of us anyway, agreed, when they say, oh, pay for my $499 course, and I will add these bonuses. And the bonuses add up to $6,000 worth of bonuses. And you say, really? Are you sure? The $6,000? And that turns me off, and most of us off, saying that now this person's just, why are they giving me $6,000 stuff? But if you just say, I'm going to add all of these things, you can get this, A, B, C, and maybe some additional time without putting those dollar amounts, because we know that's really just a sales gimmick in many ways. So pricing is a really challenging game. You can underprice, you can overprice. It's where to find, and again, in the view of the potential client, got to find something that they can see that perceived value. Yes, I'll pay that $499 because I can see the value. And that's where maybe, as Paul said, you want to make sure you give them, I think it was Paul who said this, you got to make sure you give them the best so they can see the value, and then they'll pay that amount. So you want to spend not just on, oh, I'll give them a cheap course, you know, and that'll attract them. No, you want to give them your best up front so they can see that when you ask them for that $499 or $4,999 or whatever that point. So it's an interesting challenge all around pricing and value. It's a great discussion we're having. I really enjoy it.
It's a huge challenge. From the coaching perspective, many coaches have discovered that there are people out there that shop around, and it's based on price. When people are shopping based on price alone, it never works. There's the whole.
That's a losing game.
It's a losing.
That's a losing game.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, they're charging $499. I'll charge $399. Oh, somebody's charging $299. I'll charge $259. Mm-hmm. And you just get into a losing game. That is not how to price, because someone else, you create that value, they can see it, and then you set a price that people find acceptable, and they'll just know. I mean, oh, that's the cheaper one. Well, then that's probably not as good as the other one. So, but you have to add value if you're going to charge $4,999 or whatever it is. But they can see that, and they know it, and you've shown it to them, and they'll pay it happily because they are getting results. But it is. Price is not the way to. I'll be the lowest price now.
Yeah. So that leads to the conversation that many coaches have had in the past. Do I charge by the hour, by the month, by the project, by the results? How do I set that? And that becomes really difficult. So, Gina, what about you? I remember you and I talked about how you set your price for your what you do is both a service and a product.
Right, exactly. So it has been very challenging for me because what I started off with was a sense of what would the market bear. And what I found looking at other service providers is that there was this threshold at $4.99. So for some reason, I started less than that because I was looking at how much time am I investing. And then I found that I was actually investing a whole lot more time with people than I thought. So since then, I've raised the price, but I've also associated with other people who are service providers within my network, and they've said to me, oh, you're so underpriced. You need to be up in the $2,200 mark as opposed to the $750, and what's holding you back? And the holding back is just basically some sort of self-confidence that you can provide that value. Now, I know I can provide the value, but the perception is if you charge more and you provide the value, you'll have more customers. So I've just made my first jump, and people are like, don't just have one jump, like do the whole leap, go for it, and just don't worry about it. And it gets back to, if you're not getting a customer, double your price. If you're still not getting one, double it again, because it's assumed, I think at let's say at 2,200, which is where some of my other service providers are, people presume they're going to get value for that price, whereas they're unsure if they're going to get value if it's lower priced.
How do you determine what would the market bear? What did you do to determine that?
I was looking at how much per hour people were charging in the market, and to the earlier point made, there's a lot of downward pressure in Victoria, particularly on consulting. So if I look at my IBM rate, there's so many consultants out there that, I was being asked, would you do this work for $60? And the answer is no, I will not. IBM had high perceived value, but as an individual, I had low perceived value. So I just won't do that kind of work. So when I'm looking at my own business, I just went to different service providers. So I left the hourly rate people who were charging, $40 to $60 an hour, and said, that's actually not reflective of the amount of time and effort I'm not going to look at an hourly basis, because I don't charge my clients by hourly basis. I charge them by the project. So we'll meet 3 times. You'll put in this much time. I'll put in a whole lot more that you're not seeing, and that's the value. And the product really is, once they actually have the product in their hand, I think that's when they get the confidence that that was worth paying for. But leading into it, they're not really sure because it's so new. So I've just been encouraged to charge a lot more by people who are charging more, and they've found that made quite a difference in their business.
Interesting. Wow. So I see there's a few comments here on in the VCP plugin. I'm not going to try to read them or post them because I can't have a conversation and do the same thing. So Roland or Tim, if you would care to, but I do want to acknowledge that Vivek is out there commenting, as is Aaron with Stoke TV. And I see Roland, you have been commenting. Thank you very much for doing that. So for those who are in the film strip today, I know it's hard to be in a conversation and be texting it as well. So I encourage you to go in later and see what you see and respond. Alana, what about you? Are you at the point where you're pricing your materials, and how do you do that?
Well, excuse me. Well, I also work as a part-time VA, and I price my value. I have a set hourly rate, and it's the general hourly rate that most VAs charge. And if you have any kind of experience at all in administration, nobody really seems to, bother with that. But if I have a client that is new to me, I'm willing to work with that client. And if they can't afford my rate, or they want to negotiate it or something like that, I'm willing to do that, because I want to develop a relationship with that client. So I'm willing to negotiate my rate. And I don't really see that as a bad thing. I kind of see that as building relationships. And I'm, with that, if I build a relationship with that one client, then perhaps I can build a relationship with another client. Maybe I'll get a referral and that sort of thing. So I try to be flexible with my prices. Especially if I'm working with someone who I know maybe can't afford to pay for, to have me on board a lot. And again, I just kind of take each client differently. Because one of my clients, one of the clients is coming to an end. That contract will be up soon. But I've also had referrals from that client. So I'm hoping that will help me along the way too, help me to build my business there. But the other point I wanted to make is the demand side of a product that you might be trying to sell. And if there is a high demand for your product, especially with a digital product, if you have a high demand for a digital product, that's where you can start to increase the price of that product. So, and that kind of goes along with the way I price my work as well. If someone is asking me to get involved in a really specialized part of a project that is going to require me to know a certain piece of software, that price may be higher than my regular rate. And there may be, there is a piece of software that I do work on. It's Visio, and I have had a client ask me to do Visio work for them, and that's more of a specialized product. It's more of a specialized skill. So I do charge a little bit more for that skill. So if the demand is there, then I think you can afford to increase your price.
That's a good point, is the demand. So you raise something that has been a consideration that I haven't done anything about it, but I've been thinking about it. So what do you do when you know you could really help somebody, but you know damn well they can't afford what your regular price is? What do you do? Now, in the times gone by, in any materials that I have encountered, the advice has always been never lower your price. But if it's worth doing, do it for free.
I don't agree with free. I agree with, well, the way I've done it in the past is if I'm working with a new client, I will give them 2 hours of my time for free. And that is to build and establish the relationship. If I know someone can't afford my rate, then I would rather work with them at a lesser rate that we can both live with than say no to a client. I don't really want to say no to a client. I'd rather work with them. So that's the way I look at it.
And that's an issue that comes up for me lots of the time as well. What about the rest of you? Would any of you lower your price if you thought that the person really needs and wants what you do, or would you offer it at no cost? We won't use the word free.
I think you should let Roland talk before he explodes.
Oh,
before my one arm falls off. I've got a lot of subjects that we covered, and I'll try to keep it to just one or two. If you establish a value, part of the responsibility on you is to determine what you feel you're worth and stick to it. And if you discount it, you're basically giving away your profits. And it does not work to just discount this because you can get that client. That client goes on to somebody else and tells them, yeah, come to this guy, he'll give you a good discount. So your value is automatically downsized. So what I used to tell my DJ clients was, like, say hypothetically, what you're asking me for is a $1,000 service. and they're looking at me going, oh no, I can get those services for $500. And I say, basically, I totally understand if money is the issue for you, but I don't supply $500 DJ services. So thank you very much. I hope you have a good result. And I move on. I decline that client, but what it does is it sets the pace for me selling $1,000 packages, not $500 packages. And all the $500 package gets you is referrals at the $500 level. So there's some specific strategic business stuff that we have to watch out for. But the other thing I wanted to back up, Simon Sinek came up with a really, really powerful TED Talk where he talks about there are a lot of strategies in marketing, and pricing and setting your price is one of them. But the strategies used today in the general marketplace of advertising and promotion are not effective. And the reason that he says, the reason why is that they all work, but they mostly do not promote loyalty. And so there's no value in if the people won't come back and won't buy again. So you can get a lot of one-off purchases. And yeah, the strategy works. I sold a bunch of this product, but if they don't come back and they won't talk about you, you've really worked a dead-end street, right? So it depends upon whether we are trying to brand or we are trying to get a massive one-off sale and get people to impulsively buy, or do we want to actually deliver value? And to me, that's the bottom line.
So, but Roland, you're also pointing up to the importance of I guess what you're saying is that gee, everybody's disappeared. Is it me? So can everybody hear me? Hello?
Hi, I can hear you now.
Wow, something very strange just happened.
I think we had a hiccup.
Solar flare.
Wow.
So anyway, you were asking something, Lolan.
You said when you were talking about, you know, what happens, like in order to the sale to not be just a one-off, what you're hoping for is an ongoing relationship. And so I guess relationship is really rolled into that whole sense of value.
It's got to be, because the value simply has to be when you price something and somebody pays you for it, they get a delivery of the thing they paid for, maybe an over delivery. And so the value is obvious, but the relationship is what causes people to talk about you and pass it on to their friends. If there's no relationship, well, then they're going to be really happy with their one-off, whether there was succinct value or not. But if you have a relationship, that causes people to say, I'm going to share my relationship with another person because I can count on this being positive, and everyone benefits. The relationship what gives you a perpetuation of the loyalty and starts building your brand.
Okay, so the loyalty piece. So what about this phrase that was quite popular quite some time ago that I always kind of liked? It said under promise and over deliver. So that's kind of what you're referring to.
Yeah, I believe strongly in that saying. I almost always over deliver, and I try not to gloat or boast about myself. So I guess I'm under promising too.
Right. Okay. So and also I need to acknowledge that Heidi is out in the audience. Good morning, Heidi. If you want to come in, well, maybe not. There's only 5 minutes left, but we welcome any comments that you might have. So we've established that value is determined by the audience or the user, and there's a very, very strong connection between price and value. So when we look at value from the perspective of the audience or the consumer, what factors do you think come into play when they consider something as valuable? So, or maybe I could just say, what do you find? I mean, when you're looking at something, what are the factors that make you decide that it's valuable?
For me, it's the emotional reaction that people have.
The emotional reaction to the product or the service, or both?
Yes, to both. So it's, I think people feel the value when initially I frighten them, and then I provide the remedy, and they feel tremendous relief.
Yes, I can relate.
It's actually,
Some of those
it's been a strategy
stories.
I think I've used always. Yeah, no, but it's a strategy. It's like creating the need. You either find the pain or you make them aware of the pain, and then you come in with the remedy.
Okay, so it is an emotional reaction then. Fear.
One of many. There's others.
So what about what else? What other factors do you would you decide something is valuable? Anybody else? Tim.
One of the factors I look at, say an online course as an example, is that I will look at it, I'll compare it with my needs and my knowledge in that given area, and I subjectively is the only way to put this, okay, this is worth X number of their time, of say in hours, and their cost says it's this. So say it's $359 for 50 hours. So I would take the $359 and I would divide it by the 50 hours, and that would give me $1 per hour that they say it's worth. And then I would decide, okay, is that reasonable for the relationship we have or don't have? Is the material evergreen, or is it situational? Is it going to grow as things change?
Is the value going to grow or the price going to grow? Is that what?
And what they're going to provide for that price. Okay. Some things I'm going to look at and say, okay, it doesn't matter whether there's ever any more of it than this for this price. Some of it I'm going to say is this is too fluid an area of information to set something hard in stone, and then I have to go later and reinvest somewhere else to get new updated information and material. And that is going to affect part of the valuation that goes into a given product.
Okay.
If it's an online course. Whereas on the other hand, if I'm selling a painting or painting lessons, or I'm buying painting lessons, and I know that may sound strange coming from an artist, but you never know what you can learn from someone else at your level even. Because there's always another way to do it. Now, theirs may be more efficiently. It may accentuate what you already know or teach you tips and tricks to speed up the process.
Mhm.
So at that point, sometimes that fixed value of $359, it's a one-time shot for, say, 5 CDs or 5 CD linked videos on the web or whatever. And that makes sense. The other side of the coin is when you're looking at a piece of artwork, it's subjectional. It's not just subjective, it's also emotional. It brings it. What emotion does the piece of artwork instill? What, if I'm creating it, what was I feeling as I brought it out that went into the painting? Did it show? You, as the viewer of that piece of artwork, are then going to decide, like Jay's New York photo, whether or not the value I set on that and the emotional connection created are on the same level. Do they equate? Is it reasonable? And then that valuation, no matter whether I decide that I want X number of dollars an hour, and so the painting is X number of cost per square inch on the canvas to get to that point, because that's a generally accepted and reliable price point for artwork.
I would love to see an artist charged by the square inch. I think that would be awesome. Well, today's painting, really? I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here, you're looking at
well,
something else.
you'll see a $750, $1,500 painting, whatever. But that square inch is going to be, depending on the artist, $1.25 a square inch, $3.25 a square inch, or $500 a square inch. That's how the pricing is structured.
Canvas real estate, huh? That's wild. But I would love to see a sticker that says, you know, like $1.26 per square inch.
Well, you know, I can
pretty
appreciate that, but at the same time, it would be disconcerting for people because they can't make that connection.
Yeah, they can't do the math.
Well, even if you said X number of square inches equals, it would still be a disconnect, like having your branding off.
Well, you know, I mean, this conversation about price per square inch, and all I can think of is, I mean, when it comes to artwork, it's all about emotion, isn't it?
From start to finish, from the time you start it to the time it's hanging in someone's home.
Well, but I'm thinking about it from the consumer's perspective now. It's all about emotion.
That's it. Yeah. What did it trigger? So that price per square inch that is used to calculate it, even though it might be kind of neat to see it for some people, is not going to be a factor because the sticker shock is only going to be there if there's no emotional connection.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Gina hit it on the head. All sales are emotional. The rest of it, once you engage me emotionally, my next criteria is always time. Is it worth? If you engage me emotionally, you get my time. Never mind money. Money happens if you can get my time or today more than time. It's just strictly attention. If you can get my attention and hold it emotionally, then the value goes up the longer you can keep me there. So that's, I think, a simple way of looking at it.
That's why I have a laser pointer whenever I'm trying to sell to someone.
Well, and so Paul, you raised something that I was going to raise, and that is affordability. I mean, when you're placing a value on something, does that come into play? So Paul, you're saying it doesn't?
No, it does not. If it's not affordable, then you haven't hooked the person emotionally. Because people will find ways of getting the dollars to do what they want to do. So it's you've got, Gina had it, emotion that gets the attention and the time, and then you have and then the value comes after that. And you know, a quick answer to your question about free. You have so many hours in a day. If you feel somebody needs but can't afford it, then put that into your like charity donation or your charity work box of time and do it that way. That's the way I look at it, and leave it there, and don't even try to compute, you know, take them to being a customer, because they're not ready yet to even be a customer. They haven't got it all together, which they have to do. So that's a charity thing. That's helping people that need it.
Yeah.
Then there's the business, and that's, you know, that takes a different mindset, and that's the way I look at it anyway.
So when a person says, I'd love to do what you're doing, but I can't afford you, I guess what you're saying is that the way to interpret that is that there wasn't enough value derived from the interaction.
Yeah, because they either didn't get it, or you didn't emotionally stimulate them to think that what you were providing was valuable.
I like to kind of, I just kind of looking at the time here, I'd like to kind of add kind of a final statement if I can, and it's regarding the pricing. You know, like if someone says to you that they can't afford your top shelf rate, you know, which is your USP, you know, obviously you try to sell them the top shelf, then I think there should be another price point where it's like whether it be it's a DIY type of scenario, right? So if they can't afford you on a consultation basis, right, your service, then maybe have a course or something where it's like a downsell. It's like, all right, well, if you can't afford this, you know, $1,000, $1,500, you know, personal one-on-one coaching or whatever the product is or service, well, then I do have this automated thing for you, this course where it's me teaching, but it's just it's within a you know, a website or a members area, right? And it's just a one-time cost of, you know, it's a reduced value review or a reduced cost that might be something that's more affordable to them. You know, because in my eyes, you have three models. You have the DIYs, the do-it-yourself. You have the do-it-with-me, so where it's kind of that middle level where they'll do a little bit with you, or you do a little bit with them, and then the do-it-for-me. It's like, here's my money, get the result done, let me know when it's done, right? And those are at least my tiers, right? So obviously the one that I want is the do it for me, because it just works best for me. It's obviously the most expensive one, and it's less hands-on with the client. So, you know, those are my three sales opportunities for people to work with Magi Studios. So and it works really well. So then I can have someone come in, and then they can see the top shelf price point. At which point, then if they say no, well, then I can present them, well, here's two other options that we can go with. You know, because I personally feel that I've always been able to convince people the results oriented type of sales process that I have. Says, look, here's results. Here's the results. Here's proof that, you know, what we do works. And if they're not really willing to jump into it right away, they'll usually do the DIY thing. They'll go through the course. And the funny thing is they usually end up hiring me back to the top shelf anyways, because they've gone through the course. They go like, oh, wow, this thing's awesome. This thing's totally rad. I need them to just do it for me. And they realize how much work is involved. Yeah. So in essence, I actually make more money from the person who initially says no from the top shelf in the first place. So anyways, that's just my thoughts in terms of, you know, as opposed, yeah, exactly, Roland. Yeah, hook him, right?
So just before we close, and we are running over, I see, but there was one little piece that I felt was really related to all of this. I'm thinking that most people here understand or know about Patreon. And that one seemed to be, I noticed that a number of people who were providing things started out by providing things at no cost, invited people to go and donate what the amount that seemed to be right for them. And so I look at it, you know, there are a number of people that I follow online that I guess what they earn out of Patreon is not their full, you know, they don't earn a full living, but I think it turns out to be a fairly significant part. So by leaving it open to the person to decide what price they want to pay, it's really what Patreon is. Anybody have any observations or comments about that?
I think, can I chime in? The Patreon concept and pay as you wish concept is great when you're starting out and building up, but it comes to a point where you have to establish a price, because you're not going to build a business off of pay what you want. Now, that being said, there are people that have built businesses around a flexible pay scale, but generally speaking, it's only to get you started and to get people on board and at the price that's fair and get them paying something is better than nothing. So I think it's a real good early strategy. I don't look at it like a very strong way to perpetuate your business.
I think it's a wonderful way to cover your marketing costs.
Yeah.
The one thing that I don't like about Patreon is that it displays exactly how much money you're making within your Patreon right on that front page. So, and that's, you know, that could be kind of scary, especially if you're starting out.
There is an option to turn that off.
Oh, is there really? Oh, that's
Yes.
actually, that's really good to know. Thanks for sharing that, Tim.
So I certainly thank everyone for all of the points that you brought up. I believe that we have sufficiently demonstrated that price and value is not as simple as
We
it
beat
might
it to
seem.
death.
So I want to thank everyone for joining us, and I'm going to be Roland. If you want to put the music on right now, you can do that.